p.m., January 17th, 2024. It's time to call the city council meeting to order. Miss, I was going to say Miss Jones, but Miss Liv, will you roll call, please?
Mr. Austin,
Present.
Mr. Jubbs,
Here.
Mr. Dennis,
Here.
Ms. Malley,
Here.
Ms. Price,
Here.
Mr. Prine,
Here.
and Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Very helpful.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Brian Reese, our favorite person in the crowd, would you please lead us in prayer and the pledge?
All right, I invite you to join me tonight. Father, we come before you this evening. We just thank you for the privilege of being in this hall. I pray that this meeting, every item on the agenda, that you'd give wisdom and discernment to those making decisions as to what's best for our city and the residents here. I pray that you just be with our wonderful first responders in our city. Thank you for their service, for the police and fire and EMS, and even those at the hospital, just all those great folks. Just bless them and their families for their service. Pray that you'd be tonight with our school corporation here in the city, and Dr. Clendenning as he leads there. Just pray that you continue to guide them into the future. Thank you for this evening. We ask all this in your name. Amen. Amen. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Thank you. Is there any announcements or public comment that is not related to the agenda? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce to the council our new assistant city engineer, Matt McElroy or McElroy. He doesn't care how you pronounce it. Matt is a new hire from, he came over to us from Crossroad Engineers. About 15 years of experience there. Yes. Did a lot of work inspecting the East and West Court Street projects back in 2012. Has been heavily involved in design of our roundabouts here in town. He has done a lot of utility coordination, so he's got an excellent skill set, and I'd like you to welcome Matt to the city of Franklin.
Well, nice to meet everyone, and I hope to get to know you guys better in the coming years, obviously. So, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Hearing none, we will go on to consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda from the meetings of December 4th, 2023 City Council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Move to read old business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to read old business title only. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 1, approval of ordinance 2023-16, annexation to be known as DPW 4.5 acres annexation. We can have official action tonight. Senior Planner Joanna Tennell.
Good evening. As the mayor mentioned, it is ready for official action this evening. The fiscal plan was adopted at the last meeting. And should this be approved, the annexation for the DPW 4.5 acres would take effect January 1st of 2026.
So we've already had the public hearing, and we're now ready for action.
Move to approve ordinance 2023-16.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go over to the next item, approval of ordinance 2023-17, rezoning to be known as DPW rezoning. We can also have official action tonight. Senior Planner Joanna Tennell.
Yes, this is the companion piece to the annexation. The request is to have that parcel zoned institutional, which would be consistent with DPW and city functions. It's ready for official action. In that ordinance, it also states that it would take effect concurrently with the annexation, so that would be January 1st of 2026.
And again, we've already had public hearings, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. But
Move to approve.
Second.
we have a motion to approve. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go on to new business.
Thank you.
Move to read new business by title only.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Request approval of encumbrances carried over to 2024. Clerk Treasurer Jan Jones.
this is just budgeted money that was not spent in 2023 that had an invoice or contract to be paid in 2024. And I'm just requesting your approval.
And is there any questions on, that's, what that is encumbrances of where we've had projects, we bid them out when didn't get the projects done, so we encumbered the money to be taken care of this year. So it won't be coming out of this year's budget, and you rake the money back in, and it messes up a budget if you don't do that, so.
I move to
We
approve.
figured that out the hard way the first year.
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll go to item number 2, request to declare stated checks canceled. Clerk Treasurer Jan Jones.
Yep, these are just checks that have gone 2 years not being cleared. They just need to clear them from the system, so we need permission to void the checks.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we go on to other business.
Who doesn't cash a $434 check?
That's what I thought too.
Probably some lawyer.
Oh, I guarantee you they've cashed it. Probably 2 or 3 times. Just, we have vendors that just don't cash them, or?
They get lost in the mail.
Okay.
They could get lost.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go on to other business. These are both presentations tonight. The first one is the Franklin School Corporation Growth Data Project. Thank you for coming, Dr. Clendenning, and I know you and I talk about school growth all the time, and we hear, and the reason that I wanted really to get here, and Dr. Clendenning wanted to do this, we hear all the time about we're growing too fast and it's going to hurt our schools, and that's why you guys constantly keep track of where we're at. And that was a good study, I think, that you've done. Maybe not good because it doesn't show any growth, but go ahead.
It was a good study, so thank you. Well, you guys are breezing through, so I thought I'd slow the presentations down tonight. 31 slides. He said I could have a minute for each slide, so hey, 31 minutes later, we'll be done. And that's not the truth. Back in October, we had IU come and present. Matt Kinghorn came, and he's a senior demographer at Kelley School of Business. And we asked him the question, tell us about our growth, and specifically tell us about our growth within each school boundary. Because you know, a year ago, we did redistricting, and we wanted to see, did we get it right based on our study and having a third-party vendor come and share that. And so he gave us some other stats. So I'm going to go through some of the other stats, but really hit 4 significant points. And the mayor's really summarized the last one. We're not going to grow a lot in the next 10 years. And here's the reason why. So, but looking at some demographic drivers between 2010 and 2022, and just for reference sake, I started the superintendency here in 2009-10 school year. So this kind of coincides with my journey here. But you can see the other counties in the donut area and their growth. And just also a quick reminder, back in the early 2000s, Johnson County was the fastest growing county, looking at some home starts and those things early on. And you can see that Boone County continues to lead the way based on the population under age of 18. And then so you look at us and compared to the other school districts within the county. And Johnson County total is going to see in the next couple of years at about a 2% growth. And for us, we're only seeing about 1.4% growth. And so we started asking the questions, well, why are we going down? Because, you know, we're seeing subdivisions pop up. We're seeing, you know, the multifamily home complexes grow. So why isn't that impacting us? And so we ask him that question. And here is just look home starts. And that's one factor as it played out. And you could see here as we traveled through, you know, in that nice smiley face there is the recession. And then as things started to bounce back up. So home starts was one. Also, the fertility rate and birth rate. You know, right now, we are a community that is kind of aging in place. And what does that mean? Well, that means that a lot of the homes that we see in our school district, the families don't have school-age kids. And the Clendennings will be a good example of this. When I arrived here in 2009-10, I had 4 boys, one at the high school, middle school, CBIS, and elementary. Today, my sons live in Seattle, Washington, D.C., Boulder, Colorado, and one lives in Franklin. And so that's an example of what's happening is aging in place. We've stayed in our house, but we no longer have school-age kids. And when we look at birth rates, we're seeing a declining enrollment, a declining birth rate. The kids just aren't having families as young when they start, and they're having less kids. So that impacted us. This one right here, the third one, is really significant, and that is the cohort group. And the cohort are kids that start the school together and travel together. So when you look at our senior class of 2022, there were 427 seniors that graduated. Well, we replaced them with 331 kindergartners. That is significant when you start thinking about the enrollment for our school district. And that trend is going to continue in this next 10-year cycle for us to look at that. And here you could see what Mr. Kinghorn talks about inside of that. And I know the data sets are very tight there, but you could see that the actual versus projected, when we started back in 2009-10, our kindergarten classes were larger than our senior classes. So we were growing. We were growing at the elementary, and it was going to translate into larger graduating classes. And today, that's just not what's happening. And so here are the 4 reasons why that we are not going to see significant growth in Franklin, based on Franklin schools, according to the Kelley School of Business and what we're seeing. The cohort transition rates, and that's those graduating kids versus kindergarten kids. Residential building permits. We know that they are out there. They are growing, but they're not growing at a rate where we're seeing school-age families moving into those homes. And the parcel property file, that's that aging in place. We're seeing people just want to stay in our community. We've done a great job of kind of live here, work here, play here, and it's having an impact, which is the positive, but it's also having an impact on our school. And then the birth rates here in Johnson County, and they were able to isolate that down into also in our school district. The families just aren't having as many kids as they once did at one time. So then Mr. Kinghorn gave us 3 different scenarios: a baseline, a high, and a hybrid. And I will tell you, he was talking to us, he said, listen, I would base some of your staffing projections on baseline data, and I would look at the hybrid scenarios for facilities. One of the things that we've not participated in a lot since I've been here is building facilities. As a matter of fact, we've built 0 facilities since I've been here. I got here right when the high school was finished, and we have lived with all of their properties. As we know, we've had some deferred maintenance and different things like that where we've had some upgrades, but we've not built a building. And so he talked about that. Because one of the things we looked at inside of our study were the elementary schools and what do we need to do. Just a quick reminder, our elementary school enrollment, Union is obviously the smallest. It has 170 kids. It's maxed out at about 220 because of the septic system out there. And as we migrate in, Creekside has about 480 kids right now. Northwood is actually our largest school right now, and we did that on purpose because of the growth in some of the areas. It is a little over 500 kids. Webb is at 270, and Needham is sitting at about 340. So those are our elementary schools as we know them in present time. So the question we asked were, are we going to need to make some changes to our buildings based on the growth of the community? And here you see the growth data that he trended all the way back to 1996. So you could see what I was talking about in those early 2000s. We really grew here in Franklin. That's also about the same time you all started talking about building the new high school. If you recall the conversations back in the 90s, late 90s, you had a choice to either add on or remodel. We now have the middle school, or you build the high school, opted to build the high school, and that was based on that information. So looking at the next 10 years, what is going to happen? And this slide really shows what he projects is going to happen. Over 10 years, we're going to see a 17% growth in elementary schools, but quickly follow down to the very last blue line where the high school, they're going to actually see a -6% in growth over the next 10 years. And that has to do, looking at our kindergarten class right now, that's going to be in high school in that next 10-year period. And so we're not going to see a lot of growth at that high school. So in the end, we're going to see a few new students come to us. His projection is 329, or about 7% of the population change. But then after the 10-year journey, we're going to grow again, because you go back to that elementary kids, they're going to start having larger cohort classes than what we're anticipating at this present time. So here's what his projections are in terms of actual real bodies for us. You can see that in years 2024 to 2028, he's projected we're going to grow a whole 3 kids. Wow. Guarantee we won't have to build any buildings. And then in 2029 to 2033, he's looking at 63 kids in that cycle. So we are going to start trending up. And this is his hybrid model, looking at that same cohort transition. So you can see it's going to start to increase again over time, but in the most recent time, we're not going to see significant change. And I'm not going to read all of these to you. What I did include were the data sets for everybody, but this is the one that I really wanted to kind of hit on, because we asked the question of him, tell us, did we do right with redistricting? And what does that look like? Well, if you remember back, Creekside used to be our largest school. It was about 600 kids at one time. And we actually subtracted many students to get it down to that 480, so that we could see growth, because where we see communities growing in Franklin are the Creekside boundaries. If you look at Youngs Creek area, you look also as you travel north, what's happening up behind the old Kroger and those places, we know those kids are going to eventually end up back at Creekside. And so we purposely reduced that school in size. And you can see we probably did the right thing. And over a 10-year period, they're going to grow again. Needham also is going to see growth as we travel forward. Northwood and Union and Webb are going to see some growth, but not significant as we travel. These are the home areas that he looked at, and you all know these because you guys have been a significant conversation about what it means. And one of the things we ask him is, how many kids will come out of these homes? Anybody want to guess what the average is before I go to my next slide, unless you've already seen my presentation? What is it? 1.7? Okay. It's actually a half a kid out of every home. And go back to the
kid.
I know it.
He's going to
Dang
get
it.
teased.
I know. Well, if you live in an apartment, it's even worse. It's only 0.2. So there you go. But if you look like at the north side of Indianapolis, that stat is much higher. So you see HSCs and the Carmels and the Boone counties growing at a faster rate when you look at that multiplier effect. So when you start seeing 1,500 homes, and we're only seeing 0.5 kids, well, that's 700 kids. And if you go back to my slide a few minutes ago, I said we're going to grow a little bit over a 10-year period. That's what he's talking about in terms of us. And this is what I was mentioning in terms of the multifamily developments. He's estimating 956 units, but we're only seeing 0.2. So 2 out of 10 of those units will bring a school-age kid to us. And that's what this stat is showing us as well. So even though we're going to have homes come to us, they're not going to bring a lot of kids to us. And so there's good and bad in this story, right? The good is AV is going to continue to go up, and that helps all of us. the bad is we're not going to see significant growth. So we're going to have to continue to look at our staffing needs and looking at what we can do inside of our schools to provide that very best education with what we have. Or as we have people transition out, making sure that we have those positions in the right spots and places. That's what this means for us. And so overall, over the next 10 years, the story is going to be, we're going to grow a little bit, but not a lot. And that's one thing that Mayor Barnett and I talked about at lunch. When people ask about, hey, we're growing and all these homes are coming in, there is benefit to us. Once again, it's the AV side. But we're not going to be overpopulated based on the study that we have right now. Now, one thing he told us in his final debriefing, he said, listen, if there are new homes that come into play, I didn't project those. So they could have an impact on your schools as well. And so we'll continue to monitor what that story looks like for us. But in the end, I think we're in a good place. I think we're in a good place to continue to provide a great education for us. We still have awesome facilities. We'll still be able to continue to meet those needs. But we're just not going to see a lot of new bodies come into our school district over the next 10 years based on our study.
Dr. Clendenning, it'd be very interesting to see 5 years into this, if the homes that are being built, their predictions are 2 out of 10 that's going to see a child in the home, if that is wrong. And I say wrong.
Yep.
If it's 4 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 homes. That would be interesting to see.
Obviously, if it gets to that closer to one out of every 1-to-1 or whatever for a home, that's going to impact us, right? Because we're talking 1,400 kids, and you're going to see that different. But, we will monitor that because, as we travel forward, we do have some older buildings. I know Union's not in the city limits, but it's 100 years old. And it can only have 200 kids. And if you look at this projection right now, in 2033, they're projecting 211 kids. So the septic's going to have to be addressed and all those changes. So those were the things that we'd have to look at. But if you look at Northwood, they're going to be 530. That's not a lot of kids. That could actually happen right in there. I will tell you one thing that we are looking at that he didn't address, and that's preschool. We see Franklin as an area that needs preschool. We have preschool embedded right now in Cub Academy inside of our school district. We need to continue to have that conversation. If you're watching our board meetings, the last board meeting, we just moved forward to transfer the Earlywood property into Franklin schools. So Earlywood's dissolving on June 30th of this year. We will be the owners of that property, and one of the things we're looking at is maybe a preschool center there to accommodate our families. Because we do see that those young families are going to be here, and we know those young families need preschool. And so we're looking at accommodating that, and he didn't address that in his study. So what other questions do you have about our study? And Mr. Austin definitely will look back at in the next several years the data points to indicate that.
I found it fascinating, the study. I mean, it was shocking to me.
You said that the building and these are just based on the current things that are being built, so did he do any modeling, like, if we did 1,500 homes over this section, in the next 5 years, it may be 4,500 homes?
He
You know
did
what I'm saying?
not.
So, the numbers, I think, could be a little bit skewed just because it's just based on what we have out there right now versus in 10 years, I guarantee you, we're going to have, possibly another 5,000 lots out there.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, that's a good point, and he did not. We didn't ask him to future forecast anything. The closest we can get is his multiplier effect, so that if we do go 500 homes, and right now we say that a half a student is at every one of those, then that's going to be 2,500 kids coming to us.
But a lot of that depends on price point.
Yep.
Price point,
Yep.
Yeah,
interest rates.
sure. And so if you're building,
Well, it's interesting. We
500,000,
did a
600,000
study
homes?
with Dr. Brudvig out of IU Richmond. And her study was similar. It actually projected higher growth for us. But she couldn't drill down into some of the areas like IU Bloomington did. And I think this study is probably a better picture of what we're going to look like over the next 10 years.
Was it significantly higher?
No. She gave us three baseline points.
Similar.
Just to get there. Yeah, similar.
But yeah, a little higher.
Yep.
Interesting.
So I think what the school did is took every subdivision that we've talked about and it's got somewhat of approval to start is what they went off of. For an example, I see Winterfield there. Just so you know, Dr. Clendenning, Winterfield is starting to talk to our planning department and wanting to do something next spring, summer, so
Yep.
that one can get started. We haven't heard much out of Eagles Landing. The rest of those subdivisions are pretty much underway, so.
Yep. But good examples like at Union, that Copper Meadow, I know once again it's not in the city, that one's no longer even on the books. So you're seeing some of those conversation points that we're having with developers in the communities about what's going on. But Sean's right. If we get a flood of homes, it will be impacting us, and we'll have to look to see what that looks like. The other thing to note is the high school is paid off in just a few years. 2027, we're gonna have a big party as we pay off that. And so our debt service rate is actually really going down, and we actually in our 17A2 notice, it's going to be 79 cents for this next year. And that's the lowest it's been. We were at 93 cents last year, so you're seeing that drop, and it's going to continue to drop as we move forward to that 2027 date. So that's a conversation we're having as well inside of our school district.
Congratulations, that's good. That's good stuff.
Burn the mortgage party. Here we go.
We're going to have a big one, Lynn. Yeah. So.
Any more questions for Dr. C?
Well, thank you very much for the partnership. I just want to say that, the mayor and I talk a lot. I talk to a lot of you throughout the different conversation points that we have, but we love the partnership we have. And I would say Franklin's unique in many ways for that reason, because the school and the city really work hard together to make this a great place for our kids and a great place for our families. So I just want to say thank you.
I'm sure we can make a festival when we burn the mortgage. We're good at that. We're really good at that.
Maybe REO can come.
You go. You're onto something.
They might be dead by then.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Okay, we'll go on to the next presentation. I don't even know now if we need to expand the sewer plant. It looks like. So the next one is presentation on the wastewater treatment plant expansion, the design project. Gary?
This is somewhat related to the previous presentation because it's related to the growth of the city of Franklin. I'm going to give a high-level overview of the project, try not to get into lengthy details and allow for questions at the end. The wastewater treatment plant expansion, the existing facility was built in 1996, so it's approaching 30 years old. It has a design average flow of 5.13 million gallons per day. And looking at recent annual average flows, in 2021, it was 4.71 million gallons a day, which is at 92% capacity. In 2022, it dropped to 4.23 million gallons a day at 82% capacity. That is probably likely due to the weather, less rainfall that year, and also due to some sewer rehab work that the city's been doing the last few years. It's cutting down on the clear water getting into the sewer system. For 2023, we don't have the final numbers from December, but it's looking like it will fall about at that 82% capacity mark again. So there's three goals to the treatment plant expansion, kind of in order of priority or importance. The first one, increase the design flow and treatment capacity to allow for future growth and development within the city. Replace and update aging equipment to improve mechanical and process reliability. Over the last 8 years or so, there has been some major equipment that has been replaced, pumps, so forth. But much of the facility is still 30 years old and in need of some attention. Lastly is provide more energy efficient processes and equipment to reduce energy usage and minimize operating costs. For the major planned improvements, they're shown up on the screen in red.
It's, most of that is concrete tankage. There is a building or two involved, but it's essentially add one more tank. The treatment plant's divided up into several different processes. And let's say, for example, you have 2 oxidation ditches. The expansion is adding a third one. Just add one more tank to expand capacity. We're looking at expanding that design average flow to 7.5 million gallons a day. So it's about a 50% increase. So that would, imagine City of Franklin as it currently stands growing 50% in, say, the next 20 years. Project cost opinions, we like to use that term these days instead of cost estimates. This is our opinion of the construction or the project costs. Construction cost, $27.7 million. So this is not a small project. This is a big investment. Non-construction cost, engineering, financial consultant, legal, so forth, most of it being engineering, is $5.5 million for a total project cost $32.2 million. The anticipated project schedule total is 40 months, so almost 3.5 years. Engineering design, about 11 months. Permitting, 4 months. Bidding, financial, which would include bonds and so forth, if they're necessary, 4 months. And a construction time of 21 months. So this isn't going to happen overnight. So looking at final completion, probably fall of 2027. That, I will open it up to questions.
So can I first just say that I wanted to get this in front of the city council because this is a project that we will have to bond, and that's where the city council will come into effect. And what I really think that we need to do is at some point in the very near future is get a couple people from the city council to be involved with myself, talking with Jeff Peters, and there's several options on how to finance this. And I think that we can get with Jeff Peters and then come back with a recommendation to the council on which direction we need to go. But I think we're at a spot we know is to be responsible to the city of Franklin. We do need to do this one way or the other. And financially, we can do it. It's just a matter of which way we go with it. I want to add also, Gary, some of it up at the top, there's another building, a billing building for the billing department. Can you put the arrow up where that would be at? Yeah, up in there somewhere, build a building for the billing department. And then down on the other half of that below it for some, talking about the energy efficient. What we found out, I think last year we were $600,000-$700,000 for our electric bill to run the sewer plant, and I think we're going to try to look at doing some solar. We've had some conversation with a solar company on things we can do in that other area to help offset that. So we're also taking a look at that. And then that part that Tara just pulled up, and that's what I gave this out to the city council tonight. I just wanted to give a little bit of a conservative overview of where we're at with the DPW income per year. You see that 4.5, it's actually a little bit more than that. The cash available, we have some sewer funds, CD funds, we got about 3.1 available. The 2024 improvements, this is what we expect to spend in 2024 if we, and whenever I say if, we're going to do this, whenever we do the engineering, which it's 1.75 just to engineer it. You'll see that in 2024, our expenses will be around $6.4 million. And then you go down to the next one, total 2024 funds, the income, and then the investment, and then how much we got left at the end of the year would be 1.1. And then I also wanted down at the, where it says cash improvements since 2017, I wanted everybody to see whenever they think, wow, we have to spend all this money all at once. I wanted everybody to feel comfortable to see how much improvements we have made over the last several years, $16.8 million. So our utility is a very expensive operation to run, but it's beneficial to the city. And I will say that we have had opportunities to sell this, and I never brought it forward because I didn't think it was a very wise move to sell the utility. There's people that want to buy it, but I think we need to stay in the business ourselves because we don't want to lose control of what we have for our utility. And I know at some point, we've been very generous with the rates. I don't know if I want to say generous, we've been very conservative. At some point, the rates will probably have to go up a little bit again, so that's one of the options we're going to have to talk about. But I promise you that if this was sold, they would go up a lot, and then you wouldn't have the control.
No
of-
control.
Yeah, so we're just in a spot, I don't want to say it's a spot, it's just, this is growth, and this is, we're in a place that we've been growing, and we've got aged stuff, and we're going to have to do this, so that's where I'm at with it, and I wanted to make sure the council, the Board of Works, we didn't improve anything tonight, because I thought it wasn't right to really approve the contract without letting the city council know ahead of time. This is the kind of expenditure that we're going to be looking for, or looking at. So I wanted to get that to you first. I wanted you to ask questions to Gary, and we'll try to move forward. So,
I have a question.
good, yes, sir, go.
So there is a number that capacity cannot reach before something triggers, and I think it's 90%.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yep.
And then,
90%. Go ahead.
no, that's okay. So I thought maybe the capacity number would have increased when you came and said what we're at now, but the improvements make sense to that. So this is going to be done in 40 months, I think you said, three and a half years. So what's projected capacity going to be by the time we get done? We're not going to push the 90, it doesn't look like.
I'd have to refer to Dr. Clendenning's consultant on the future growth over the next 4 years.
Do we have that, though? Do we have that available?
Yes, you've got about, based on the last 2 years' flows, you have about 900,000 gallons. That's a lot for residential development. What could eat into that is if a big industry came in that produces a lot of water, produces a lot of wastewater. That's a real wild card that you really can't predict. You're not getting started too soon on this, I can tell you that.
No, I was thinking maybe we started too late originally, but
It doesn't look like it with the reduction in flows. I'll tell you, keep your fingers crossed we don't have extremely wet weather over the next few years, because that really does influence the flows to the plant. But it's a tough number to put your finger on over what's going to happen over the next 3.5 years.
okay.
But as far as your first part of the question, 90% is an important number, 90% capacity. When you reach that, IDEM can issue the city an early warning sewer ban notification, which sounds a lot worse than what it is. It's basically IDEM telling the city, look, you're at 90% or more capacity. You need to start planning to add capacity. The bad news can happen when you reach 100% capacity for, not just for a month, but for an extended period of time, maybe up to a year. They can issue a sewer ban where the city would not be allowed to connect a house, a commercial business, or an industry to the sewer. So that would ultimately put a halt to growth and development of the city. So that's the bad news, is if you reach 100% for, not just for a month, like I said, but an extended period of time.
I agree.
And if any of the council members or Board of Works members are interested in touring the plant, I'm sure Sally would be happy to show you, and I'd be happy to join too and explain this project and what's needed.
I did ask at the Board of Works, I don't know, Councilman, if you were there, that they bonded the original in the 1990s, they bonded it as well. And I don't know anecdotally from experience, but I think interest rates were even higher then. So your timing may actually be good, given what's going on in the market with interest rates, to be moving now rather than, God forbid, a 2008 period of time or in the 90s.
Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
This is, I think, maybe my second city council meeting I've attended. A little shorter, I like them better than the Board of Works meetings.
You obviously don't get paid by the word.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, thank you. That gets us to council member comments. We'll start with Jennifer.
I have nothing, thank you.
Nothing? Irene?
No, nothing, thank you.
Tom?
Jennifer and I went to the NEO meeting yesterday, and we made it safely after fishtailing over 465 overpass going north.
75 miles an hour.
Oh, my goodness.
It was, yeah, it was going on a little fast, perhaps, but it hit black ice.
Outside our jurisdiction, don't you?
I was fine. I was calm, cool, and collected, but not sure my passenger was.
Was not.
But we learned a lot.
Did you find it Did you find it helpful, the newly elected officials training?
I believe that there were some things that were helpful, and there were some things that I already knew because I'd been here for a year coming to meetings. So,
Some
Jennifer?
things that were redundant, they did, I wish that they would have done a breakout session, so they did a 1 hour, this is what a town council meeting looks like, and then we went to lunch, and then we came back in another hour of what the city council looks like. I wish that they would have broke that out. If you're a
Sure.
town, go to here. It was just kind of a,
Yeah, there were mock council meetings,
yeah.
and you guys run a better meeting than they do.
Thank you. Yes. Sean?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Ken?
Welcome, young man, to the city, and look forward to working with you.
Ann?
I have no comments.
Nothing tonight.
Tara, anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody to get tickets for the State of the City address. It's February 8th at the Garment Factory. Doors open at 11 and the program starts at 11:30.
Thank you. Liv? Jan? Ms. Gray?
No, sir.
And I don't have anything, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.